Guys, this is Jim Meskimen. Jeff referred him. We love him to death. You missed the intro because I forgot to hit the record button. Go.
All right. You asked me and you gave me that nice introduction and you said, what about 10-year-old Jim? I actually feel like I have very close contact with 10-year-old Jim, which is nice. Part of it is because I still live in the same house, believe it or not. I've had many adventures in many other places and lived in many other cities, including New York City, and lived in Spain for a while. But I'm back and have been back for a while in my old house, which it's not a bad deal to to be able to
Your
have the
child,
old
your childhood home?
childhood home. Exactly. And
That's
we've
lovely.
it's been renovated a few times to greater or lesser degree. We just got finished redoing the kitchen, which was a big ordeal. But anyway, 10-year-old Jim wanted to be mostly a cartoonist, and rather avidly. I was a kid that drew in school. I did the yearbook and I did the school newspaper, and I wanted to be Paul Conrad or Walt Kelly
Very
or
cool.
Mort Drucker. Thank you very much. And all my life I've drawn, and I still draw today. And I'm a trained painter as well. I got into painting eventually, but 10-year-old Jim wanted to be a cartoonist big time.
I love that. I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I don't have any talent at it, but I'm a fan. And you do it a lot. You do it professionally, don't you? I mean, for
I did. I
movies.
don't I don't do it professionally because I don't really need to. And it's nice to have an art form where you do whatever you want
Yeah.
and no one says, well, could it be a little more lavender or could you make this hand a little bigger? So I don't, it's all mine.
Yeah.
And I do draw. I draw for I have a as a promotional stunt years ago, many years ago, 1986, in fact. I came up with the idea of doing a cartoon contest, a caption this cartoon contest. I may have predated the New Yorker cartoon contest. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. It's not a contest. I mean, it is, but
It was a
so
contest.
I started mailing out a cartoon that I would draw, an original cartoon, to my mailing list, saying, "Hey, caption this, and you win. The best one wins a prize." And now I do it on. It's been in many forms. Now it's completely online on Instagram and Facebook. I draw it on an iPad, and it's essentially the same thing. And then I send them as a prize. Whoever wins, they usually get an audiobook that I've either narrated or directed or something.
I love that. I love okay, so you loved doing that when you were 10.
Yeah,
Were you a live in the moment kind of guy? Were you a dream about the future kind of guy? Um, did you like school? Did you get along with people?
well, let's take these one at a time. So I was kind of a live in the moment kid, I guess. I did think about the future. I kind of created my own world, like a lot of little young artists will do, I guess. And I
Mm.
wanted to make movies. I had a Super 8 camera. Wanted to make movies and tried to make movies. And, you know, um, and I liked school a little. Certain things I didn't like at all. I mean, it's so the uncertainty of it, particularly at age 10. Elementary school, I think, is just was for me just an abysmal experience. I mean, it could
Really?
have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse, I guess. But it was mostly just kind of waiting out the time. And I was remembering the other day how I used to draw on my desk a lot, which is just a symptom of not understanding what the teacher's talking about, which is another symptom of poor poor education techniques, which are I don't know what they're like today, but at the time it was super boring. And so I would draw on my desk, but small, because you don't want to
Get in
attract attention to
trouble.
the fact that you're drawing in the Formica, whatever.
I
But
used to memorize my favorite half-hour sitcoms. I figured out that a class was about a half hour. So I'd memorize the sitcom from the night before and I'd replay it in my head during class. So
wow,
I'd have my own TV lineup so I could just completely ignore the teachers.
oh my God,
Served
that's a
well.
wow, that's brilliant. If you can do it,
Yeah, yeah. Well, because I couldn't draw. You you got to figure out a way to get
those are the
through one.
choices:
Yeah,
draw or memorize a TV show.
exactly, exactly. I don't know what it's like now, but the education system. So when did you run into life? Because we all have our strong firm personalities when we're 10, the spark of who we want to be and who we're going to become. And then life starts telling you to become an accountant or whatever it wants you to do at a certain age. Did you run into life at a certain age saying, stop, draw, Jim, get a suit?
Um, well, I guess practically speaking, yes. But by the time life really started making, to put it in this way, by the time life started noticing, that there was somebody out of line, it was too late. I'd already kind of had wins and established myself in some small way. I
I
mean,
love that.
yeah, and that was because of my mom. My mom was very encouraging to me as an artist in general, whether I was writing something or drawing or painting or whatever. And she not only tolerated it, but she fostered it, and she never said until much later, really, maybe you should also have another profession, because that was not the way that she grew up, and she was also quite stubborn that way. She became an actress and did very well, and made her life that way. And the only job she ever had where she had to actually do anything, she tells me, was when she had to do something at Sears in the 1950s, like in the office, some administrative task at Sears where she had to alphabetize things, and she knew the alphabet, so she could do that job. But that was as complicated as it got for her. So she was not a big one for making me worry or be concerned or withdraw because of what the awful bad world was going to demand. And so I really kind of got cocky and confident about what I could do as an artist. And I felt like, there's a place for me somewhere in the arts, and I'm just gonna do what I like. And obviously living, well, not so obviously. I mean, we weren't wealthy. My mom was a single mom. She raised two kids. We didn't have a lot of money. She eventually made it very big, but that was after I'd left the house. And so I was just kind of stubborn about it. And by the time life came a knocking, or you can imagine the big guy that comes to the door with the hood and the big scepter,
That's
the
how,
bony
honestly, that's
finger.
how I see it.
Yeah, the bony finger. By the time the bony finger came along, I was like, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, what an example. I mean, what an example to have your mother. I mean, that's an example. I'm raising kids on my own, and I'm going to do what I want anyway. And I'm going to not only do it, but I'm going to make it big no matter how long it takes.
Yeah, she was quite extraordinary. Is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, that is something. That's a lot. That's okay. So were you doing impressions when you were that young? Because I'm sure. I mean, it's something that, like that woman that does the 8 zillion accents in like 5 minutes, and you sit there and
Mm,
you're in awe. And then there's
mm.
me. I've lived in the UK for about 20 years now, and I now can't even hear the difference between an English person and American. In my job, that's not a very good thing. Do you think it's something that you can work on and become better at? Were you doing impressions when I mean, how do you do that? Was it just out of the womb imitating people? What do you think about your talent?
Well, I do think you can work on it, and that's what I did. I I worked on it all my life. I have, and I enjoy it.
What
We had
sparked it?
we had an English maid, a nanny called Connie Godby here, who must have been from the north somewhere because of the way her accent was. And my mother used to point it out to me and say, "Listen, what Connie says," and she would imitate her too. And so early on, I kind of got used to the idea that, well, people speak in different ways, and it's fun to duplicate them. It doesn't
Yeah.
hurt their feelings. You're not doing it to take the piss out of them. You're just interested in people. My mother's very interested in people in general. Loves to know about people. Loves to know about different viewpoints. So dialects and accents and things like that, and the sound of their voice, so the way people communicate, uh, became for her, I think, a field of just fun research. And then I also was infected by that. And uh, yeah, when I moved to New York in the early 80s, I just was in heaven because it's such a melting pot. You know, you talk to people. All of a sudden, you talk to people in the street, and they're like this. You know, and they look, they talk like they look like they're talking with their chin or their jaw. You know, they really want to touch you with their jaw, and all kinds of different people.
People on the street selling you umbrellas. You know, they are from 2 days ago they were in Ghana. Today they are on Fifth Avenue selling cheap umbrellas that burst apart the first burst of wind, completely rip off.
Okay, so this is, I'm trying to get my head around this, because it's obvious that part of the miracle of the voice being so effective is the physicality, and like you're inhabiting whoever that person is. And you said that you studied it. And aside from natural talent, do you have a conscious, I'm going to notice this, I'm going to notice that, or is it like a muscle memory thing now that you just see the person and pick it up? Or do you think, oh, what is their face like? What are they, how are they moving? How are they, do you have a process?
Well, in terms of like digesting, I guess on the inflow side of it, you know, because there's like an inflow where you observe it and there's an outflow where you perform it. I guess on the inflow side, I follow my affinity. I follow what I'm interested in, what I love, and what I'm attracted to.
Right.
And that would be different for every person, right? So, you know, like there are certain celebrities that I've been imitating for years because I love them. You know, like, you know, in high school, you know, I used to watch Woody Allen movies. It was, you know, always a pleasure to absorb that personality. You know? Sometimes it would take me 15 minutes or a half hour to break out of it, you know. Or on the other hand, there are other celebrities who I probably should do. It would be profitable to do, but I don't like them. So I'm not interested, not interested in absorbing the minutia of their sound and their tonality and so forth.
You know, that makes me think, because a lot of the accent work, people learn, you know, the different dialects, and they learn the mechanics of it. And the minute it comes to the mechanics, I just literally, my mind wanders, and it makes me feel stupid because I can't, when they start showing me the graphs of what's inside my throat, I just like want to leave the room.
Yeah, no, everybody needs their own, you find your own way into it. And I'm not that way either. Consulting a book is like, if I'm really interested, maybe I'll, but it's been years since I've looked at one of those books. For me, I get the most bang for my buck by meeting someone or talking to somebody from that country or who has that background or something like that. And then I will just become them and kind of make a copy of them. And at this point, you talk about my process. I don't know. I'm extremely competent in this area. And that competence has began with affinity and has evolved into like practice. And just practice because I like to do it. So it's just like a piano player doesn't need to, I assume, think about, you know, where that chord is. They don't have to look at the keyboard. They can just kind of plunk it down. I can do that too, vocally and with some characters that I do.
It's really interesting that you say that. It made me think about something, because I've only been narrating for like 7 years, and when I started, I loved it. I did it. It was natural. I did what I wanted. And then I started to learn different ways and take advice and alter little things because I took advice. And then you always get coaching. And someone said to me the other day, they were like, listen to the first one you did, listen to this. Why? You know, why did you? That's so wise. Find something you're good at first that you have affinity for, and then just work that to death until you're like the best. Because you try to learn everything.
Yeah. No, you're never going to cover it all. I mean, how many ways of communicating are there? Also, you know, it's an art form, narration, to get to that topic, which I love to talk about. Yeah. I've been narrating, I don't know how long, 20 years, maybe not that long, but I've been doing voice work and vocal stuff forever, since I had a little tape recorder. You know, I'm sure a lot of people on this Zoom call.
I love that. We all had tape recorders.
Tape recorders and cassettes, and made little radio shows and stuff, and played characters. It's most of the guys I know who are big in animation, big animation voices, they were guys like that too, and girls like that. including Nancy Cartwright, who's arguably the woman with the best career in voiceover, as Bart Simpson. But all this stuff is an art form. So the good news about that, I think, is that there really isn't right and wrong. There's just like an infinity of possibilities of ways you can do it. And, certain people like one thing more than another. And in the audiobook world, I've heard people that listen to audiobooks, people that listen to our work, they've said something that I felt myself, which is that, there's certain voices that you just like to hear, and certain ways of expression that you just like. And there are others that I can't take it. I've pulled the earbuds out. I went, I can't take it. I don't want to, I'd rather not hear the story or I'll read it to myself.
Yeah.
So, it's very subjective, and there is no right way or wrong way of doing it. Now I'm in a position where it's kind of, I maybe it's unique, maybe it's not, but I get very little feedback on what I'm doing, and I'm very comfortable with that. I'm quite allergic to criticism and evaluation, quite allergic to it. I've not had too many good experiences with it, and sometimes some pretty bad ones. And I noticed that as a director, I have to expunge criticism and evaluation entirely from the way that I direct people, because we don't like it as human beings. It's not very helpful. It's important to direct for sure, and when that's warranted. But in audiobooks, it just doesn't come up that much.
Because in audiobooks, it's afterwards. So when you're working on stage, a director's helping you. Oh, you're almost there. Just look at it this way. And you're like, yes. And you're on a journey with them. In an audiobook, you're pouring your heart and soul in. And then somebody comes along and goes, kind of monotone. Not to me, obviously.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean? It's not an act. And somebody said to me, you need an active, I think PJ Auckland said this. Mm-hmm. You need active direction. You need direction that you can take an emotional action on. That's not, I just didn't like what you did.
Oh yeah. That's deadly. Yeah.
And you've proved yourself. I mean, with years and years under your belt working on your craft, I think you have to be careful because that's where I get myself into trouble. I want to tick all the boxes and follow all the rules and make myself as open as possible to any guidance. And like 7 years of that, you get a lot of stuff. And I like that I think your mom gave you that, the confidence in you.
Yeah, to some degree, for sure. I think you have to earn it. You have to make it yourself. Confidence, you create it. You have to decide, I know what I'm doing. I'm certain. Create your own certainty. And of course, experience and successes help to buoy that and push that along. But but it's a great art form. And I remember, talking about being interested in reading and stuff and listening. And long before there were audiobooks, there were these albums, that I used to listen to. In our house. We had poetry and some different stories that we listened to in our house. I think Dame May Whitty, I think Alexander Scourby reading things, and the Highwayman, that poem, and that was a big part of my growing up, was just that background of auricular entertainment, things that you would listen to.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just grew to appreciate it very early on. And when I discovered in my 20s that, I was in New York, and I was like, working as a cartoonist, but wanting to be an actor at that point. And I realized, I've just got a little bit of a leg up on a lot of my contemporaries in terms of what I can hear and what I can perform with the impressions specifically. And so I began to kind of play that card as often as I could. And I found, well, I'm actually in a kind of a rarefied air here. And you wouldn't know that unless you moved to New York and, schlepped around and went to auditions and stuff like that. But so that was a good step for me.
So the impressions, had you already been performing doing the impressions? How was that coalescing when you were young?
Well, when I was young, I was quite shy about those sort of things,
Right.
quite tender, and not,
Oh,
it would come up sometimes especially in high school. I think I would do some plays and stuff, and amongst my friends, but I didn't have this dream of someday I will have my own room in Vegas, and like Rich Little, I will have them rolling in the aisles. I never had that dream. I wasn't really bright enough to know that that was even a career.
okay.
I was just something that if I discovered it on television, I'd go, oh, this is cool. And I'd sit down for a half an hour and waste the time, but
But that's the most joyous art. You did it because you loved it.
yeah, I did it because I was doing it anyway. It was fun. And the stupid thing was that I waited, I think, so long to really focus on it. I would I've been an actor for 35 years. And so, things go up and then they go down and they float along, and you don't have this crazy trajectory like you wish you could have, in my case. So I would do like a one-man show of impressions, or impressions would be a big part of it. And that would sort of make things kind of bubble and froth for a little while, and things would get kind of exciting. And then I would just sort of skip it because, I'm interested in them, but I hadn't really dedicated myself to it so much as a discipline, like always do impressions, like when you see Robin Williams is always, thank God when he was alive, we saw him all the time. When he would do a performance, he would do impressions, he would do voices, crazy things, all day long. He wouldn't stop. It was maybe a problem. Like Jonathan Winters, there was no off switch. But
you changed your eyes. You literally made your eyes look like Robin Williams' eyes. I don't understand.
Well, genetically, we're not that far apart. It's a pretty short trip. But anyway, it's just I forget what I was getting at, but it's not something that I concentrated on. And over the last, I think since 2011, when I had a viral video on YouTube with impressions, that's when I went, all right, idiot, maybe you should kind of always do impressions aside from all the other things you do, right, and the things that you really want to do, but always keep in the rudiment of doing impressions. And that's when I started to really hunker down.
Is there one thing you love to do the most? Like,
of all the art forms that I like to do?
Of all of the ones you like to do.
I'm really kind of promiscuous that way. I'm afraid I get interested in lots of things. And part of being a grown-up, I guess, is like kind of deciding what you're going to do and hunkering down and isolating yourself to it. But because of my general irresponsible nature, I guess and my lucky breaks, I've been floating around doing a lot of things. I was a man on the street spokesman for years. I earned my living doing commercials in New York, and then I did improv theater for 10 years or more, and did improvised one-act plays, and then I had a career doing animation and animation voiceovers. And then now I'm doing voice of Colonel Sanders. I do the voice of Colonel Sanders for your TV shows and your radio commercials and so forth, and things like that there. And I do audiobooks, and I got into directing audiobooks. I directed 500 hours of audio multicast productions. And then TVs and movies and stuff in between. So, if I could do any of those things full time, I guess, and support my family, then I would do that. But instead, I have
after a day.
I got to keep all the plates spinning, like in the old Ed Sullivan Show.
But what strikes me is, and it's like, as you say, as a boy, I didn't even have in my mind that it was a thing. What strikes me is the motivation of all these things that you've done. It's like you attach yourself to things that make you feel joyful, and you go from joyful thing to joyful. I mean, I'm sure you had rocky bits and awful things happen, but you go from joyful to joyful to joyful things. What's the next joyful thing I can do? It's like it's a fun, it seems from the outside like it's a fun game. I think we could all use a little bit more of that attitude rather than, oh God, I've got, because it's like every joyful thing we get, I think Michael, I'm horrible when I'm in an interview. I can't remember anyone else's name, but Michael Kostroff has this thing about auditioning, and he always says, you know, you audition for the joy of the audition, not for the job you're going to get afterwards, because you're not going to get the effing job, excuse my language. Right? And that's what it seems like you've kind of mastered. You're enjoying this thing, whereas a lot of us are like only doing this thing because of the thing we want later.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to, but I'm like everybody else. I'm like everybody here. I have to pay the bills, and I get a little, kind of pinched and go, I need a job, and but I have been lucky enough, like I said, I consider it pretty lucky, and had some really, really good friends and mentors who kind of helped me just clear the way and recover my own confidence enough times so that I could do some things that were hard work, were uncertain, but yet yielded some satisfaction artistically. I studied oil painting as well. I went to Spain for a couple of years and learned to be I got classically trained to be an oil painter because I thought, well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the path, and then I realized this is a lonely path. This is too lonely for me. And that's when I decided to move to New York and be an actor. So, I mean, there's a lot of struggle in it all. And I haven't smiled every day of my life, but I think on the whole, I've been pretty happy. And I've, especially to the degree where I felt I was doing something that was not a compromise with my own taste or my own self-respect. I haven't dipped real low and just done anything. I've tried to keep, and maybe that's from my mom too. I mean, because she was always, wanted to be sophisticated and wanted to be better and wanted to be kind of high class. And
you held on to the 10-year-old. And the other thing is, I believe there was a big conversation about this. I don't know who it was recently about, do you have to go through struggle? It was for writers. Do you have to go through struggle to be a good writer? I believe that the most interesting actors, narrators, are people that have had something happen in their life, because how do you interpret people's stories with, I mean, having empathy is one thing, but having experience on top of the empathy. So I'm not saying it's a good thing that you've gone through struggles, but the fact that isn't it what we're looking for, right? As creatives, that in all the good movies, the person that through force of their spirit still finds joy or whatever, you know what I mean, despite that, not instead of struggles, but despite the struggles. Isn't that like the end game? Okay, now I'm being selfish. I'm monopolizing your attention. We have 1,000 questions coming in, so I'm going to start throwing them at you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Jonathan says, can you do Walken or he can do Walken? I saw it on that clip. Can you do Walken or McConaughey?
Well, I can do either if you want. The point is, why? Well, Christopher Walken is a wonderful, I mean, it's incredible when you think about what he's become. Because when we first saw him when he was young, he just looked like a huge shaved cat. And he had a completely different kind of beingness than he does now. And he's become this grand old wacky man.
Matthew McConaughey has also changed, hasn't he? Because he started off, he was just a guy who looked good with his shirt off. Now he's got this whole, philosophy. And I mean, he could have gone into politics. I don't know if he's gone or not, but I worked with McConaughey one time in a film, and very nice guy. But he's, again, you wonder, because I'm old enough to remember when Matthew McConaughey came on the scene. What was his first big movie? And here's this leading man that they're pushing on everybody. Like, is he really, gosh, can you really be a leading man? This guy, can we really have a new leading man? I mean, we already got all our leading men, haven't we? No, here's this other guy. And by golly, he's stuck in there and he's an Oscar winner, well-deserved.
When you go to parties, do people make you do impressions like 24 hours a day? Do you not get like a doctor and all their friends are always asking?
I've never been to a 24-hour party. I'd like to go to one sometime.
I have.
No, I don't know.
Sadly.
I'm basically a pretty shy person. I think I speak much less than the people in my small circles. I wait for my moments.
Yeah. Okay. I can't empathize with that one. Okay. Nancy says, have you had to change your technique after meeting someone in person?
Oh,
Oh,
of an impression.
yeah. Have you done impressions and then met the person in person and had to change it? Or because you
Uh,
found them around?
well, no, not really. I guess I have. Yes and no. So doing an impression for me is kind of an ongoing thing. First of all, it's a moving target. The celebrities are getting older just like I am. So they change.
Yeah.
You know, like Jack Nicholson. When we heard Jack Nicholson back in the beginning of his career, it was this kind of young, springy vocal fry thing going on. Now Jack is completely, I mean, if we even hear him, which we don't anymore because he's basically retired, he's a different kind of guy. So it's a moving target that you're always chasing. But I always feel like with the English accent you talked about before, I feel like I'm always refining it and trying to learn more. And it's not like I'm ever going to be perfect because, I mean, you really, I think I have to live there and work there and meet 1,000 people there and interact in every sort of way in
It
order to be
ruined me
complete.
living here. I can't hear it. I can no longer hear the accent. Well, because I live with a Glaswegian, so that kind of
Oh,
cues the. I can
yeah.
do that,
Is it true? Is it
and then
true
I
that the
can't.
Glaswegian is it true that the Glaswegian is always either half full or half empty?
Oh, I've not heard that one. Oh, I'm never gonna let him forget that one. That's oh, I love that one. It is true about the I know that everyone has cliches and you're not supposed to believe in them, but I do tease him that like he like keeps thinking prices should be the same as they were in the 1960s.
Oh, it's just everything's so dear. Why?
Okay. Jim wants to know, when you do voices in audiobooks, do you channel a real person and do you worry about imitating them too well?
Good question. So yeah, I often get asked to do books, and they'll send me they'll say that you don't have to do an impression of this author. It's like on a nonfiction book, for example. You don't have to do an impression of this author, but here's what he sounds like. Here's a YouTube clip, and if you can kind of give us a sort of a flavor of that. And I understand. I think when they say we don't want you to do an impression, we don't want the author to feel mocked. We don't want it to be a labored performance that seems
Yeah.
like some other weird thing. So I get that. So I try to then, in that case, it's very clear. You sort of, maybe there's a kind of a feeling that the guy has, maybe a sort of a thickness, maybe a sort of a very articulate kind of way of speaking that you want to duplicate without mimicking them exactly. But maybe there's a way that, I don't know, that you can kind of sell it that way. Other times it's kind of interesting. Like if it's a famous person all of a sudden pops up in a book, like I did a novel and the John Lennon was a big character in it. And so I was like, so do you want, I mean, I guess you want me to do John Lennon.
Yeah.
Like, so in the end I did, I gave him the best John Lennon that I could. And I listened to loads of recordings and tried to sell it that way. And apparently he was very happy with it. So other times you don't have any guidance. You're like, oh shit. I told you, I think in the break before we got started, that I'm almost finished with about a 570-page novel that I've been laboring with the last week. And I'm really glad to be done with it. It's just gone on so long, and a lot of complicated words, and then bits in German, bits in Yiddish, bits in, what was the other one? Latin, please. Oh my God.
Oh.
So all these things that just make you put the brakes on and pull over to the side of the road and lift up the hood. But there was a part where it came up and the characters were listening to the radio they turned on the radio and it said, "This is All Things Considered. I'm Robert Siegel." You know, and I've been doing Robert Siegel's voice for years, and I thought, oh, I have to do it.
Have to do it.
I'm not gonna not do it.
Okay.
I don't know if
So
I answered your question or not.
the rest of Jim's question was, some books, many of your impressions require stammering, stuttering, inserting noises, etc. When you read an audiobook where the author has not included these, do you put them in?
Yeah, no, I don't. Good question. I
Yeah.
do not. If it's, yeah, I try to, eschew all that kind of stuff, even when just reading normal characters and conversations. Sometimes I'll put a little handle on the beginning of something like, "Are you really sure that's the place to go? I guess you're right, Marjorie. You know, but I won't go."
Yeah.
Won't add
Yeah.
too much vocalization if it's not in the text, and that's partly because of my training as a director, of like being extremely having extreme fidelity to the actual words that are written, and it's carried over to my acting too.
Yeah, I had one, funny enough, I had to do a chapter 1 for someone today, and one of the characters he's got a twitch, and and they don't say he's got a stutter, right, or like a stammer, but it's so in there, and I want to do it, but it's not written, so I'm not allowing myself to go there. But you really want to grab it. Okay, Barbara says, what's a topic you wish you knew more about?
Music.
Oh,
Yeah, I love music a lot. I don't know much about it. I never studied it. I sing, I play a little ukulele. I love music. I have many, many musician friends. Next lifetime, baby. More music.
or maybe this lifetime. There's still a bit to go.
Yeah, I'm not, the
Add
fuse
it
is not
on.
burning down too fast, but yeah, no, I like to get involved with music. I just realized that if I'm going to be, if I want to be a keyboard player like Chick Corea, I think I'm gonna pick that up next time.
Yeah. Well, that's me with ballet. I'm probably not going to be a prima donna ballerina, but I can do a YouTube video or two. Okay. Barbara says, have you ever pranked anyone? If yes, what was the prank? Or vice versa? Anyone prank you? If yes, what was the prank?
Wow, very thorough. Yeah, absolutely. Many times, too many times to remember. The story that comes to mind is that when I lived in New York, my sister used to work for my mom in Los Angeles for a short time. She worked as her assistant and answered the phones. So whenever I would call home from New York, I would try to prank my sister. I would pretend to be somebody else. And I'll disguise my voice and say, "Is Marion there? This is Phil Wallace. We met at the church." And I try to wind up my sister. And to her credit, she very rarely was fooled, but occasionally, it was good. And she and I have had a back and forth all our lives, and she's very clever, very funny, and quite brilliant.
Can she do impressions?
That's a good question. It's not her. She's not really a performer. She's a writer, producer now. So I'm sure she can, when telling a story, she can easily imitate the people involved in the story. I'll give her that. But anyway, so I had developed this habit of calling her, on a regular basis, calling my mom. And whenever I did, I'd always try to prank my sister. So then I came home for the holidays or something, and my sister said, "Oh my God, I hate you." I said, "What? Something out of the ordinary?" She said, "No, this guy called up," and I picked up the phone.
Oh no!
And he said, this guy said, "Hey, I was on the ship with Marion. I'm a Norwegian sea captain, and she was on the vessel, and I wanted to know." And Ellen said, "Jim, knock it off," and would not buy that this guy was an actual Norwegian sea captain. So that was a kind of a delayed reaction prank, I guess.
Oh no. And you know what's funny? We ended up talking about your sister.
That's right.
You guys, you know, we're famous for the only time I've ever had people ask to edit things out of these calls are their sisters. I always get like 5 days later, you know that thing I said about my sister?
Yeah, we're gonna have to edit that all out. I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's too funny. I'm going to try to convince you
Yeah,
to keep it
I think
in.
it's okay. I don't think she'd be offended.
So directing. Is there something when you're directing that you wish people would understand? Like, so, because, you know, communication is a big thing. Sometimes what you say and what people hear are two different things. And that's a challenge, isn't it, as a director?
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. And what I've learned from good directors that I work with is that you got to find the way in to communicate what you want to that person. It's not one size fits all. You know, we all respond differently. And some people need a line reading sometimes. And even I need a line reading sometimes if something very specific is desired. Other people, you better not do that. You know, I've worked for director Ron Howard a bunch of times, and you know he's very good at it, at finding exactly what that person needs. I think the thing that's most important, what I learned and what I hold close to my bosom as a director, is that if you come to a project with the whole performance of everybody cemented in your mind, and you want them now you want to direct them and force them into that little category that you've created, or that little niche that you've dug out, it's just arduous, and in the end it's unprofitable. What you want to do is, you know, you're both looking at the source material. If it's an audiobook, you're looking at that. If it's a script, you're looking at that. You're looking at some ideas symbolized by words. Okay, there is no right way to do it. There's no right or wrong way. There are an infinity of ways, or a lot anyway, of communicating a written idea. You want to try and, you know, the team who is creating the audiobook is trying to transmit as smoothly as possible the author's intention and mental pictures and so forth along the line, so that the viewer or the listener also gets that. And they have that experience that the author originated and hopefully intended. So you know, what I learned, the hard lesson I learned was that, you know, even though I've got this idea of what this show should sound like, the other actor may have another idea, and it may be completely viable. And you got to allow, I think you waste their performance and you waste their contribution by trying to get to fit it into the narrow thing that you thought of. You may have a great idea, but they may have a different great idea. And if it's theirs, let them sell it, I say. And so I err in the direction of, okay, you know, Joe, that's not the way I would have read that, but it doesn't negate or invalidate what the author's saying, and it's your idea. So go ahead. Let's let it ride. And what's nice about that is, I mean, it may not be the greatest show in the world, or maybe it'll be terrific, but it allows the actor to not hold themselves back anymore. They're not trying to go, oh, what does he want? I'm not sure. I try all these different things. I'm going to try something. I think I might be wrong. You know, like, you make people cautious and timid, which is just then, I don't know, just sort of tiresome.
They're relaxed so their muse can come out.
Yeah. And you go, oh, that's a great idea. They go, yeah, I have a lot of great ideas. Then they'll share some with you.
Then you might have gone down a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, maybe. But mostly I think it's, I mean, particularly when you're talking about an audiobook or an audiobook production, there's mountains of material. It's hours and hours and hours. Let's just try some things. We don't know, you know, people are going to listen to it, and some parts will be stronger than other parts, just like in a movie. You know, some scenes you go, oh, I don't remember that scene. Other ones are like, oh my God, that one scene, that was incredible.
Yeah, I love that. And it's the thing you said about criticism as well, because if people can say the same thing to you a million times, but if they're not saying it in the way that you can accept it, sometimes the one person comes along and they say something and they you don't feel threatened by the message. And then you can and you grow, don't you? A lot, because then once you have the confidence to get out of your own head, then it starts being good. Somebody asked a question here. When you want to imitate, Jim, when you want to imitate someone for the first time, what is your approach? Do you just mimic till it sounds right, or do you analyze and create a sequence of adjustments to play with?
Well, as I say, I'm so practiced in this. I do it all day long. I've done it all day long for decades. So the process is very rapid. And so I can, but you know, look, for instance, I get emails from my agents every day saying, you know, we're looking for this voice. Can you replace this actor? Can you do something that sounds like this? And I'm listening to things, and I'm, you know, I just grab the first salient thing that I'm interested, that I catch. You know, I guess you hear a voice and you go, oh, he's
got a breathy quality. Interesting. Okay, breathy, but he's from England, so his sounds sort of like this. But it was from out in the countryside, though, so it's got a bit of this going on. And,
you know, and then I just sort of work it. I don't know. It'd be like if you were drawing a picture of something. First you kind of make the general outline, and then you go, all right, well, it's like that. And you work from the general to the specific, I guess.
And a lot of us do that.
It happens so fast with me. It happens so fast with me. I don't break it down too much into individual. There's a lot that happens at once, I guess.
But it's similar to character work for an audiobook then, isn't it? We find someone they remind us of, we try to figure out what their main feelings and objectives are, what their traits. I do a thing I used to do, and I'm going to go back to doing it before I record a book. I would record, like, as a warm-up, I'd record like 10 minutes of the characters in the book talking to each other and explaining their story to each other in their like tone and voice. So in my head, it felt like, so then they have a relationship with each other before we even start. And it was a way of finding a way into play. And I stopped doing that because, you know, advice. And I'm going to go back to it because it's a way in.
That seems very profitable for me if you've read the book ahead of time. And it sounds like it's the way Mike Leigh makes movies. He gets the actors to work on their characters a lot and bring all kinds of stuff into it.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, see, I was a genius and I didn't even realize it.
Nobody told you. Nobody told you. They forgot to tell you.
They told me that's a bit silly. Do lip trills instead. So, yes. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question that I kind of hit everyone with at towards the end of each call. For the audience that might be watching this in 60 years or so, if you could say one thing that you'd like to leave them with, like a message you'd want them to walk away with, something that you'd want them to learn, even a funny joke, what would you like them to take away from this call?
Well, I think I'll speak to them in their language of the people of 60 years from now.
There'll probably be AI.
True. Oh my God. I don't know. Just the thing that I ride, the pony that I like to ride is you know, set a good example. There's a lot of happiness in that. Set a good example. Wherever we are, whatever time it is, what era, you know, the people that really make a difference are those people that kind of marshal their own self-respect and their own capabilities and try to do it for the good of the larger number, you know, the good of all. And set a good example in whatever you do, the way we interact with people, however that will be in 60 years. Let's do something that we wouldn't be ashamed to be copied at or for. And that works as a parent, and that works as a fellow cast member, artist, collaborator, what have you. Try to set a good example.
I love that. Are you going to ever do a collection of every voice that you've ever done? Like just record, like
well, that would be very, very ambitious indeed, I think.
Like you could just keep a little recorder like you had when you were a kid, and like every time you do a new voice, record it. Wouldn't
well,
that be
I sort of
something?
do that. I mean, I sort of do that now on my YouTube channel. I do a thing called a celebrity fortune cookie, where I spin a wheel, pick a celebrity, open up a fortune cookie, and read the fortune aloud. So I have about, I don't know, 1,000 of those videos on YouTube.
I'm going to put the link on the about section of this one so people can check it out, because I
Please
love
do.
that. I love that. I posted one in the group, the narrators group before. I'll send you an invitation if you'd like to join. I posted one in the group of you doing, I didn't understand what it was, fake faces or something, but the imitations were amazing.
Deep fake. Yeah,
Yeah.
that deep fake is this face swapping technology that a fellow in England did for me. Yeah, I've had a couple of viral videos with that stuff.
I've never heard of it
Yeah.
before. Is it a thing
No.
that I'm just not
It's been around
trendy
for a
enough?
few years now. Deep fake. You should know about it. I mean, it's one of the good things about doing this video is that it introduced people to the possibility that we could be absolutely hoodwinked by video. People, you know, someone could say, "Hey, this is Joe Biden," or "Hey, this is whoever," and it not be. You know, so it's good to know about it.
Yeah, that
And I want to say hi to Tad and Nancy and Marie and Kim and Jonathan and another Jim Patton and Barbara and Lisa. Thank you very much.
Hey, you
for
got them
tuning in.
all.
Appreciate it.
And you do know that after the call, I will send you the chat as well. And they know that if they want to say hi or anything, you'll get to see the chat after the call. So you won't miss out. Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay. This has been pure joy. Thank you so much for joining us. I was like a total stranger out of the clear blue sky going, "Hi, Jim, be on our show." So I will send you an invitation to the group. I don't know if you're on Facebook ever, but we'd love to have you. Just a bunch of narrators hanging out. We don't post a lot. We just do these videos and everything. Everyone's saying thank you so much, and they're all going to go to check out and subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Thank you.
And you're talking to your people, you know, narrators. You start doing those character voices, and you got us hooked.
Yes, yes.
So thank you for taking the time to see us. It's been
right.
wonderful. Now I get it why Jeff loved you so much and everyone loves you so much. Thank you, Jim.
Now you understand.
Now I understand. It makes sense.
Well, thank you. You've been a very gracious hostess, and thank all of you again for joining me. It was really, really fun. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to me.
Bye, everyone. Mwah.
All
Thanks
right.
for joining.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.